Hey guys, how are you? Just want to give you a quick tip if you guys have this issue. This is a 3 Series BMW, and this issue essentially just started recently. This car's got an N52 engine in it. If you guys know anything about BMW, especially with this N52 engine, particularly with this N52 engine, they're known to have issues with rough idling, particularly around the 500 RPM mark. Now, normally with this situation, you're not going to figure that it's going to occur when it's cold, but more normally it occurs when it warms up. When you first start the car up and it idles about 1,000 RPMs. You're not gonna notice it very much, if at all. But once it settles down, it warms up to around 500, 600 RPMs. You start noticing that it idles pretty rough. Now, a lot of times when this issue occurs for a lot of people, they they it's kind of like a coincidence that it just comes up that your car is going to be working, your 3 Series is going to be working real fine, but out of nowhere it comes up. Or sometimes it comes up after you change the spark plugs, you change the coils, maybe you change the gasket on the uh, uh on the cam, of a variety of things. All right, and here's the tricky part about this. There have been times where this issue comes up and there's no check engine light and there's no check engine code. Now, with my car, I changed the spark plugs recently, and after the spark plugs were changed, noticed that this issue started occurring, and I was thinking maybe it was probably me not tightening the spark plugs up. It could be one of the coils that may have gone bad. But the strange thing is, if any of those things occur, you should get a check engine light on it with a code. But in this situation, there was no check engine light at all, so I was left to just try to figure out what could be causing it. It's really an annoying thing, and a real nuisance, particularly if you're one of those people who actually do care about your car. You don't want to be driving it that way, don't be running it that way, because you're just afraid that, it being a BMW, if you have some kind of minor issue and then you just let it prolong, it might turn into a bigger issue. But let me just list all the things I did. And basically, I pulled out the spark plugs just to see if there was any oil inside the wells, and pretty much pulled out the spark plugs, tightened them back again just to make sure that they were good and tight. Put the plugs in, and start it up and see if it actually ran any different. And unfortunately, the situation was exactly the same. So that being the case, and if you guys have this situation, with that being the case, where you guys have this obvious issue, it's an issue, it's an obvious issue, yet there's no check engine light for to give you a quick diagnosis of what's causing it, you're pretty much left to either go into the engine bay. Sometimes it might not be in the engine bay, might be a couple of other things, might be electrical, but you're going to go into the engine bay, and you're going to start checking things out. It could get expensive. Could get time consuming. Could be time consuming if you're a do-it-yourselfer, as far as changing things up on your BMW. You're looking around. the whole engine compartment, see if there's anything that's loose, any loose wires, any kind of vacuum tube that might be disconnected. And a lot of times in these situations, particularly with BMWs, there's not enough space to work on. You're gonna have to, there's not enough space to put your hand to get to any kind of vacuum tubes. And a lot of times these vacuum tubes pretty much fork into another part of the engine, and it's just really time consuming. It's pretty expensive if you gotta take it to BMW, and a lot of times they might not be able to diagnose it, because what they do is they'll just hook it up to their computer, and if they can't diagnose it, you're gonna spend the money for them to try to diagnose it, and them just telling you that they can't replicate the problem or whatever, and then you're still left with that problem. But here's the thing about it, all right? Even if you do put an OBD2 specific to a BMW, there's a good chance that it won't pick any codes up, which is the weirdest thing. All right, in my situation, I was looking over the whole engine compartment, and it occurred to me to maybe unplug a couple of sensors here and there, just to see if it made any of a difference as far as the idling is concerned. And one of those things that I did unplug was the mass airflow sensor. Once I unplugged that, it started idling fine again. It started idling fine. There was no rough idle. And at that point, it occurred to me that it might be the mass airflow sensor. Funny enough, the mass airflow sensor is an important enough part of the engine as far as diagnostics is concerned, where the OBD2 should be able to pick up that issue. But it's a strange thing in this situation because the OBD2 didn't pick it up. Now, here's the situation with this, because if there's no code for the mass airflow sensor and you unplug it and it idles normal, what you want to do is, if you don't want to replace the mass airflow sensor, it's not really a particularly expensive part, relatively speaking. You could do what I did and take the mass airflow sensor off. All right, you can take it out, see if there's any kind of damage, see if it's dirty. What you can do is you can get some, I believe there is some electronic spray which you spray it in and to clean it up, which is what I did. I sprayed some, I sprayed it over it, clean it up, put it back in. You could actually buy the spray at AutoZone or Advanced Auto, any of the auto parts place. Plugged it back in, and essentially plugged it in and start the car up, see if it actually changed anything. And I gotta tell ya, it really didn't change anything. The only time it changed is if it was unplugged from there. It was unplugged from there. So I was thinking, there's a correlation that even if I cleaned it, it didn't look particularly dirty, but the mass airflow sensor could have been damaged or malfunctioned. So what I did was I actually did get a brand new mass airflow sensor, an OEM mass airflow sensor. And in this situation, if you guys are either trying to figure out whether to get an OEM from BMW, manufactured from BMW, one of their subsidiary companies, or where they get their mass airflow sensors from, or a non-OEM part, in these situations, OEM, the mass airflow sensors, are very, very sensitive, calibrating air to fuel mix ratio, and it's very, very important, particularly in this situation, to probably get an OEM part. So this is what I did. I got an OEM part. It's a little bit more expensive than the non-OEM part, but I got it. I put it in, plugged it back in, and then stopped the car, and then ran it, and then had it idle for a good 30 minutes. it went up to 1,000 RPMs. Obviously, when it first started up, it idled good, and then when it warmed up and the RPM dropped to 500, 600, it idled good. All right, and at that point, I knew that it was the mass airflow sensor that was the issue. And if you guys have this issue, there's a good possibility that it is probably the mass airflow sensor that is the issue, and it's definitely worth taking a look at, particularly with these particular set of what is it, symptoms. So if you guys in this situation, definitely either unplug the mass airflow sensor. If that actually changes the way the car idles when it warms up, then there's a good chance that it's your mass airflow sensor that's the problem. And if you guys have this issue, definitely buy the OEM, the original manufacturers for the OEM for the BMW, and it'll definitely help solve your issue. All right, guys, hope this has helped you guys out. If you guys have any comments, particularly with your particular situation, hopefully this has helped you guys out. Now, there are a variety of different causes for idling issues with your BMW, but this is essentially the one thing that that could possibly help you guys out with your car. That's probably the easiest way to diagnose, and probably the easiest and cheapest way to fix. All right, guys, hope you guys get your problem fixed. Please comment, please give me a thumbs up, all that good stuff. All right, guys, take care.